back. Happy Friday, everyone, to Things You Ought to Know podcast. I am your co-host, Kelby and
And I'm your other co-host, Erica Arnautovich.
All right, today we are meeting with Meg. She is a employee of Kulture City. Kulture City, if you haven't heard of them, they are an amazing organization that provides sensory training for major locations. I mean, they're in NFL facilities.
Yeah.
All major, I think pretty much all major arenas and for concerts. And where was I yesterday? Oh, I was not yesterday. Over the weekend, I was in Charleston. We did a girls' weekend, and at the Charleston Gilliard Center, it's like the theater there. I was just walking past into the theater, and I saw the Kulture City emblem with the sensory training, and I just thought that was so cool. It's like we had just interviewed Meg, and then being able to see it kind of like out in the wild. I also attended an event for Channing's Joy Foundation. It's a local foundation here in the Charlotte area. And Kulture City sponsored a sensory tent. And so I got to be part of the team to kind of help set up that tent. Then we had the coolest like portable blow up tent with like darkening features on the inside of it.
Yes.
So it was like, because it was very sunny and hot outside. So the kids were able to kind of enter into the tent and they had fans, they had bubble towers, they had water play. Kulture City also handed out individual like gift bag, like swag bags, basically. Wow. The headphones, the silent noise canceling headphones that my son wears every day now are his favorite pair from the Kulture City swag bag.
Wow.
So he loves those pair. So I just have had wonderful experiences with them. So
they're an amazing organization, actually the largest nonprofit, all like inclusive organization, I believe. In the U.S.
I would believe that. Maybe I don't know the fact, but I would believe that.
Yeah, I think
they're awesome.
I think they are. So yeah, we'll double check that. Fact with Meg, but yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, you're going to hear her talk about the new integration they have with the speech. Meg is actually an SLP. She's a speech and language pathologist, and she worked hand in hand with Kulture City to create Koji, and so it's a free AAC device that you can just download the Kulture City app, and then you can access it that way. And Meg will kind of walk you through it on that. You'll hear within the interview, but we're really excited to be able to kind of provide a platform for more people to get to know about that.
Yeah.
That's something you ought to know about is the Koji free AAC, because if you know, it's not a cheap device to supply your child with, and not only the device, but then the app and everything else involved in it. So,
but you can get them free through the state, but it just takes a little bit of time.
Yeah.
Kulture City, from what I understand so far, and we're going to let Meg walk us through, it's literally an app you download and you go and you get the Koji, and it's free.
Yeah.
So, but you can get a device and like Pro Loquo or any of the, apps that go on the device for free through the state. But
yeah,
it takes some time, and you got to have an SLP to order that for you and everything. But yes, I just wanted to touch on that.
Yeah, no, good education part of it there.
Yeah.
I think one thing that kind of I learned about Koji through our conversation with Meg that sets it apart from what my experience is, at least with Pro Loquo to Go that we use for Porter right now, is Koji has AI integration into its system. So Meg kind of touches on the benefits of that. And so I would just encourage anybody that's listening today, if you are even curious about it, then it's as simple as just downloading the Kulture City app. I want to say it's in the bottom left-hand corner where you'll see the Koji emblem, and you'll be able to access it and kind of play around with it. Again, it's free, so get in there, use it. I think even if you're not like a active member of the autism community, if you just have if you're a passive member, where you have someone within the family setting, grandparents with that AI integration and the easy use of it, it's very user friendly.
Yes.
I think it would be a really cool feature for you to go and sit down with grandparents and say like, hey, if you want to, Porter learns this way. This is how he communicates. So this is a free device. If you're ever out in the community and need to use it for another kiddo like Porter, this is how you use it. So I think there's a lot of benefits to not only personally diving into it, but just showing other people how to use it so that we can provide a more inclusive atmosphere for our kiddos.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've recommended SLPs use it when they're kind of trying to see whether or not they want to go down the route of an AAC for a kid, just to kind of see how the kid responds to something that's similar to an AAC. I think there's a lot of really cool features to this particular, but that it's free. Try it. Like let's just see how the kid responds. Or if you're in that waiting period and you're just trying to get a kid to have a functional way to request, while you are waiting or you're still kind of in that unsure time. So it's a really awesome, app that I'm really excited to hear Meg talk more about. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
I want to just preface this interview to you're going to hear me fangirl out towards Meg because Meg is, she wears many hats. Not only does she work for Kulture City, but she is an author to the My Brother Otto series. Just not knowing anything about Meg or even Kulture City yet, I purchased the My Brother Otto book at an event, and it has been Parker's favorite book to read.
Really?
Yeah. So he loves to hear and read. I mean, he's not even a year old, but he just loves that book. So I think there's so many benefits to reading that book to neurotypical kiddos. It gives so many insights into, happy hands and stimming and why they only like to wear yellow or certain things like that. So you'll hear me fangirl with Meg because I just was like, "What? You're the author? Oh my god!" So as soon as I knew that, I got really excited. But I think we'll go ahead and dive in to let y'all get to know Meg and get to know more about Kulture City.
Yeah. So welcome back, guys. We are here with Meg from Kulture City. And so she has been kind enough to send us a bio on her. So I'm just going to read it off. So Meg is an autistic female mom, speech language pathologist, and a neurodivergent advocate and children's author working full-time for the nation's leading nonprofit in sensory inclusion, Kulture City. She wears many hats with utmost vulnerability and can be found hustling for an inclusive world for other neurodivergent children and adults 7 days a week. I love that. Her past work consists of freelance writing for PBS Kids of Southern California, past and present writing for Scary Mommy, and authorship of the children's book series featuring an autistic crow called My Brother Otto with Gibbs Smith Publishing. She graduated with a master's in speech and language pathology and a certification in autism spectrum disorders from the University of Minnesota, Twin Cities, in May of 2012. At this present moment, Meg cannot shut up about Koji, an AI-generative communication tool that is free on the free Kulture City app and is an innovative tool for non-speakers, minimally speaking individuals, and those who acquire a speech and language deficit post a neurological event. I love it.
You wear many hats, Miss Meg.
Yes. I don't
even
know
which they all go together, right?
Yeah, they do, but I don't know which one to start with.
They all go together.
I'd love to kind of start with just get to know you and your journey to your diagnosis. Is it something that you came into adulthood, or as a child did you learn that about yourself?
Great question. So I would say no. I just found out like 3 years ago. I got the formal diagnosis, but for like two to 2.5 years prior to that, I had a bunch of autistic friends of mine just kind of put the idea of like, hey, Meg, like, do you think you might be autistic? And I was open to the idea, but I just, like my background again is as a speech and language pathologist. I primarily have worked with autistic children and adults. So, I don't know, like what I would see within them and like how our sessions would go. I guess I would not necessarily put me into this is there a nice neat box of autism? But like I would not have guessed without my friends kind of motioning me to look into specifically like female autism and how like that is a very different, more newly understood diagnosis. And So I spent a lot of time reading different articles, asking questions, researching just via even Instagram, just various other autistic females, and then finally took it down south. I'm in Utah, and I went to a psychologist here in Holiday, Utah, and got the formal diagnosis. Reflecting back on my life, absolutely now can easily see the neurodivergence in me from a very, very, very young age. Incredibly deep feeler, very empathetic. I have a strong sense of social justice, which is a common trait with autism. And I don't know, I think I just always knew there was something different about me, but I also didn't understand maybe why my peers around me, or even so like my parents and other adults in a way, like I felt like there was something different in me, like I couldn't just get over things, and I feel like I could always sense emotion, and so I wouldn't understand how everyone else, could go do their daily activities, whereas I would feel it, and then sometimes that would put me in like a freeze mode, where I would just like perseverate on the same thoughts, and just have a really hard time getting over different types of situations and whatnot. And then what officially led me to my diagnosis is that when I was pregnant with my first child, her name's Ellie, I got diagnosed with mild Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and it's the hypermobile type of EDS of Ehlers-Danlos, and I think there's like 4 different types. And I had started reading again, probably like 3.5 years ago, about there's a correlation between female autism and Ehlers-Danlos, and I was just like, so then that led me to like, okay, I'm gonna go, chat with a psychologist and just kind of like talk this out and figure out like, what does this mean? I think at that moment, even before I went, if I'm honest, I knew already without getting the diagnosis. I was like, okay, like there are just so many different things that stand out. Like my parents would term different repetitive behaviors of mine as with these different names, like thumping was a big one. And thumping is where to self-regulate without knowing I think I like kind of like knew that maybe because I had to do it, but didn't know the word self-regulation. So I would elevate the top portion of my body in my bed while laying on my stomach, and would, elevate and create these rhythms like up and down and up and down. I mean, I could do this for hours. And I just remember thinking like, this is soothing, and this is just part of Meg. Like my parents call it thumping, so Meg thumps. Like I didn't know that was necessarily anything different. I'm still friends with my best friend from high school to this day, and she'll even tell me like, yeah, I remember at sleepovers you would do that, but I was just like, she looks happy, like she's sleeping. So um, she never thought anything of it, which I love because I feel like that's so naturally inclusive and kind of her. Though I want to say a caveat, like I think it's always appropriate to ask people questions to get to know and to understand why someone is doing what they're doing. I think that's great. And then yes, that led me to my diagnosis as in my mid 30s. And here I am today working with Kulture City, as was mentioned. And I feel like my whole life has been centered around and leading up kind of like to this recent decade of mine. And I'm here for the ride, and I am super driven to leave an impact on the neurodivergent community, but also on the world like surrounding all of us, and to invite others into that too.
And I apologize if this is. Let me know if you're comfortable answering this.
No,
But
great.
do you wish? Is there a part of you that wishes you would have been diagnosed from childhood, or do you appreciate not, I've seen both ends of it where,
Mhm.
adults being diagnosed have said like, I'm glad I didn't know as a child, but now I'm glad I do know. So I'd love to know kind of what your thoughts are.
Yeah, and I think that's great. And I it's so funny because even from last year in my advocacy, like and where I was to this year, I feel like I've changed a little bit in that answer. Because that's a question I'm asked frequently. For me specifically, yes, I do wish I would have known. I think again, I was the kid asking the why about everything and would just have again these very deep, exhausting emotions. And I think if I could have known like, hey Meg, your brain is just working this way, then I would have been able to I would have been able to understand kind of like my peers in a way better of hearing like, oh, maybe your friend Lauren is not to that level of feeling that way because her brain is just working differently. Just in very basic terms, I think that could have been monumental for me, and alleviated I mean, there's a lot of anxiety in female autism, and I think that would have alleviated a lot. Um, so the change in advocacy, though, for me on that statement is, and I think this is across all aspects of life, I don't think there's like a one necessarily like a straight answer for all of it. However, if you do pick up on your child just wanting to know about them or like just kind of saying like, this is hard, like, why is this hard? Please don't withhold the information. And then obviously I don't view autism as a absolutely like it's like a big part of my identity. Um, it does come with disability, but it's not like I'm not ashamed of it. And so I think that the tricky part of the balance in this, I call it the dance, is figuring out like as a parent, like it's also important that you can talk about it, and go further with your child. Um, and that energy you bring, like, because if you present it and you're like, we need to talk about something and it's very serious, like that could actually be kind of a traumatic conversation to have then, versus if you can kind of say like matter of factly, like, hey, did you know like there's all these different types of brains? And yeah, just diving deeper in a more positive way, because I think that would be essential. Because otherwise, if I would have heard about it as a kid in a negative light, that would have just added to my anxiety. So I think it's also like where the parent or caregiver is at on their journey as well.
That kind of leads me to my second question, which would be, how did your parents take the news of your diagnosis? Even at this age, you're still their child, at the end of the day.
Yes. They are, when they first started, they were, obviously their view of autism was certainly Rain Man. Like that is I remember growing up watching Rain Man with my father. And so when they heard about it, they were just like, huh? It's like, like, wait, what? Like, how did we not know? Wait, what? Just super confused, which is very understandable because again, it's only relatively recently that we are understanding the nuance, especially again with the female autism. But then when I sat and like went through a bunch of stuff with him, they were like, oh, yeah, like like I would get like things had to be a specific way, and they would just kind of sit there with me, which was really nice during my big emotions. But I can still remember them a little bit being like, we don't quite know what to do except for to verbally keep saying like it's gonna be okay. The thumping was a big one. Um, what else? Just like some of my social group, like I would just say things were just a little bit more complex for me behind the scenes than maybe the average kid. Again, they'll tell you I wanted to know why. And I also was a rule follower. So give me once I learn the why and I hear the rule, I was always still really good at like following rules and find comfort in those. But will also get super confused if I'm following a rule, how anything could go awry if I'm following the rule. So now what's very sweet as my parents, so like I think like my sister told me this was a couple months ago, she's like, man, I caught mom talking to our aunt, and I think my aunt she's in her mid 80s, and she was saying to her, like, teaching our aunt about autism and saying, like, there's no wrong brain. And I was like, it's just very sweet to hear my parents, I think, even like as months pass, they're learning new things about neurodivergence, and that it's not just, again, autism does not fit into this nice, neat box. I am not an autistic female that has to have high supports every single day of my life. So I don't look, again, like the next three people that are autistic either. So we have commonalities. There are moments I need high supports, but it is, yes, they've landed in a place where now they just get it, and it's been good to like be able to chat about it with them.
They're part
there's
of
no
the
shame with them
advocates club already, it seems like, too. Just
yes, oh,
with her saying that with
yes.
your aunt.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, sorry, I have one more question. I want to give you space to be able to answer the question too, but now I'm curious, like, how did that impact your, your partnership with your husband, your children's father? Like, what did that diagnosis do for your relationship? Does he kind of understand a little bit more about you?
Okay, so we're about to go real deep.
Okay,
so,
okay.
You're ready for this.
Drink for this one.
I am actually no longer with my biological kid's father.
Okay.
But I am remarried, and he himself is neurodivergent.
Okay.
And it made like it's just, I mean, even, I don't know, even yesterday, like we just share about like, oh, like I noticed you were doing this. Is that because of this? Like we're just very in sync with how each like how our brains are working and whatnot. And so my husband now, his name is Jared, and he will tell you, like, even when he was dating me, there's no games with me. I'm just like, this is me, this is what I have, this is what I'm looking for. What are you looking for? And then I don't know how to do the, like, I don't know, like some of my friends will say, oh, you have to wait a couple of days or something, or like you need to wait 3 hours before texting. And I'd be like, but if I have a thought that I need an answer to, like, why can't I just reach out now? Or
like that.
Yes.
I love that.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's a beautiful little love story. Like what do they call it in the movies? The meet cute, where it's like
The meet cute.
Yeah.
Yes. And we actually had met on a dating app, and you can actually read about it on Scary Mommy. There's an article that I wrote about it. But I love writing. That's my strongest mode of communication, is writing. And so we had met on Hinge, and we wrote for 3 weeks back and forth, like, and his writing skills they're still amazing. And he knows, like, that's one of my love languages. Just write me a note. I love it. And so, yeah, that is how we had connected. And it has been a great journey. He's very supportive, and it's really nice to be able to even approach all aspects of a relationship knowing more about yourself, and being able to kind of like advocate about what you need and like why you need what you need.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's awesome.
No, it's great.
That's really amazing.
Okay, I'll pause for my questions and let you
I
ask.
was gonna say, all of those questions were like questions that were brewing for me too, so those were good ones. No, I'm trying to think here what's like my next question, but you keep
Okay,
keep going.
Okay. Well, I'd love to know.
I just want to be a bystander today.
I'm truly fangirling, so I'd love to know how you got connected with Kulture City, and then if you can kind of give us a little bit of overview of who and what Kulture City is, and then we'll go from there. So yeah,
because I'm at a loss for words right now. I'm so like in tune to listening to you. Just don't stop talking. 'Cause you said that writing is one of your best mode of communication.
Oh yeah.
So, but the way that you're speaking is also amazing.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm just like, I'm like enthralled.
That one is definitely more practice and repetition.
Yeah.
Writing is more of an innate, Yeah, an
Yes.
innate strength
Well, you're
for
doing
sure.
great because I'm enthralled.
Oh, you're
I'm very rarely at a loss for words.
oh, you're very sweet. Yes, so I had seen the work of Culture City just online. Like I had seen, so I'll just say who Culture City is, but it ties in to our story on how like I connected with Culture City and like my writing and whatnot. But Culture City is the nation's leading nonprofit in sensory inclusion. So 1 in 4 kids and adults have an invisible disability. So autism, ADHD, PTSD, anxiety disorder, Parkinson's, dementia, stroke recovery, traumatic brain injury recovery, concussion, the list goes on. It's 1 in 4 worldwide that have a sensory processing challenge or need. And Culture City provides trainings that are specific to their partners that they work with. So think airports, school systems, first responders, hospitals, restaurants. We have specific trainings that go over what is sensory processing, what does overstimulation or understimulation look like, and then how can we as staff or volunteers or the first respond whoever we're training, how can they partner with a child or adult that enters into a state of dysregulation to get them back to feeling their best selves so they can participate in this beautiful world around us. And we just celebrated our 10th year anniversary, and it is probably the most fulfilling thing to my soul is Culture City because we're very much what you see is what you get. It's just all these people that love other people and that have some sort of connection either personally to neurodivergence or know of like how to parent that was a special education teacher and like instilled in them like this desire to create a more inclusive world. So yes, we've trained over 2,600 venues and entities, actually worldwide. We're primarily in the States, but we're in 5 other different countries too, and hoping to get more and more of an impact. As I say, 2,600 places, I'm like, there's obviously millions and millions of places that exist, so the work is definitely not done. But I just loved, like, when I initially found them, I just found them on social media and really liked what I was seeing with their work and how intentional. And I loved how they were thinking about what already exists right now in the world and how to encourage families and individuals to join in on that. Because, again, as a speech pathologist, I got to see firsthand a lot of my families kind of doing the same activities or avoiding going to specific things, even like avoiding going to a church that they're a part of, because of that, like the needs of their child, or the idea that maybe people will be watching and not accepting of their family dynamics and the child, and maybe the child will be quote unquote kind of distracting or something like that. And I get that, like I think a lot of education is still very much needed to create those safe places, those emotionally safe places for families and the individuals. So found them on social media. At the same time, about 6 months prior, had released, or my first book got published with Gibb Smith, my brother Otto, which, as you said in the biography, is about an autistic crow. And Otto actually was a preschool classmate of mine. Like when little Meg was in preschool, Otto was my classmate, and I was just like, oh my gosh, there's so much overlap with kind of like who Otto is and what this book means to me, and then what the work of Culture City. So we did the whole like let's chat via social media, and then one of the co-founders, his name is Dr. Julian Maha, called and said like let's chat, and we just kind of were chatting about like who are you, what do you do, what do you do. I remember him saying like what's your pie in the sky with Otto and stuff, like what, I don't know, just very intentional questions from him. And from there just started volunteering with Culture City. Like he would reach out to me and say, hey, there's an event in Utah, would you be able to help with A, B, and C or stuff like that for a couple of years. And then that evolved into more roles, getting hired part-time and still maintaining my credentials as a speech pathologist. And then eventually I hit a space, and I tell people this all the time, that I love speech and language therapy. I love it. I think there is a place for it for sure. But for me, what was hard is that if I really look at the work that I was doing, I was like, I am working with the same kids and the same families year after year on the same goals. And these kids aren't getting any sort of a break. And I've always believed like it's not fair that I mean, if you have a diagnosis of autism, especially from a young age, you can be in therapy indefinitely if you want. You like again, we know like standardized assessments, they're not normed for the autistic brain, right? Like so you're gonna test probably way, way lower percentile wise. And then I was like, I've always believed there should be a bend where like the neurotypical can learn about autism, and like bend toward the autistic child or adult. And then I was like, Culture City is such a beautiful example of that, of where it's like, it's not all on the family, the autistic family, the family with the autistic child or the relationship with the autistic partner. Like it's like now becoming this worldwide event of that bend that I always had thought about. Um, and so from there, I got offered, I'll never forget the day that Julian called and was like, Meg, we're ready, like come full time. And I was so excited, but also like, oh my gosh, I have to let down my boss, my present boss. But even she like was like, you can't, like I call her, and I'm still friends with her, but she's like, Meg, you can't turn that down. She's like, that's like exactly what you would want to do, and you're going to be so great at it. So go after that route. So it's been nothing but the biggest gift of here's this beautiful package of things that you love to do, Meg, and these amazing people. You can take this or leave it, and it's like an obvious, I have to take this. Like this is amazing. Fast forward, so I still get to use my background as a speech and language pathologist and got to be part of an incredible team that designed, this is where I get super excited, and I'll try not to cry, but I can get emotional about it. But we designed, it's like the first ever like worldwide AI generative communication, like conversational talker or tool. So think AAC, augmentative and alternative communication. We're not here to, we tell everyone. Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
Both of our boys use one. They both use an AAC.
Oh, can I ask which ones?
Prolo
Just
quo
as
to
a
go.
switch there.
Proloquo.
Yeah, excellent. Excellent.
Yeah,
Yes.
we've been on it
So
for
that's,
2+ years,
And we literally just got ours. My son just turned 4, so we just got ours in the mail 3 weeks ago and just are like still kind of setting it up with all of his therapists.
awesome. Yeah. No, that's awesome. I know a lot of great things about, I feel like, each of the existing devices and apps and whatnot. And I will be the first to say I understand for sure, like Culture City with Koji, that's the name of our communication tool. It's not here to like have to take over every other AAC option that's out there, because as you've probably seen, like different things work well for different people. Um, but the one thing I can say that is so unique about Koji, and I'm just shortening it to Koji, but for anyone listening, it is you download the Culture City app, and then within the Culture City app, on the bottom right is the Koji icon that you would click, and then that pulls up the communication system. This is the different thing, it sets you up for literal conversation right away. So let me explain how that works. So the AI talker feature, you would just select that on the main screen of Koji. It's at the upper left. And I'm sure you guys, especially as moms with kids in different therapies and whatnot, have heard like probably the best practice for AAC is modeling. Like be modeling and in context, repetitions, all that. And so we took that, coupled it with like presuming competence of all users of all ages. And So now what you do with this AI talker part of Koji is you'll select the microphone. You could just be saying in it like, I'm cooking dinner right now. I'm feeling hungry. And it'll record exactly what you said on it and it'll pop that up. And then it'll come up with comments that your child or that another non-speaking individual can select to start going back and forth right away, which is really unique. But you can get deeper into it and you can, with Kulture City just released a video on, I think I hear this a lot from parents, like they would like to know, well, what is my child like feeling? What do they need? Like what's going on inside of them. And so I really love how quick and easy it is for the parent or caregiver to be able to model the language in context, literally throughout the day without having to navigate the AAC systems that are out there. And it's just so highly customizable too. So say your child really loves a specific wrestler, you could then dive deeper and create these different language folders, and we will walk you through kind of like the types of phrases and full sentences to use within those folders, so that we can set you up for using language to its fullest right away, which is again very exciting. And then the most exciting thing, I can't even remember if I said it yet, but it's free. It's completely free. There's no in-app purchases. We are already working on Koji 2.0 and have a ton of ideas for that. We would love to hear, so anyone that's listening that plays around with Koji and you have ideas, please email us. We love this. We want everyone to be a part of it. And we want to continue to develop it to be the very best that it can be and to be super user friendly for both, again, caregivers and parents modeling, and then also the user, obviously, because that is going to be a voice for them. And yeah, so completely free, available literally right now, any smartphone or tablet. You just download it and it's right there and ready to go, which is so exciting. But yeah.
I'm super excited about this, especially when you said free. So I'm a nurse practitioner at a pediatric office, and I diagnose autism. So I kind of went, once my son got settled, I started, like a program within my office to diagnose autism. And so I have families often that, and I deal primarily with a lower socioeconomic, kind of a rural socioeconomic difficulties often. So getting things that are either very low cost or free is best.
Yeah.
And so this is something I plan on now that I know that it is free, and I'm so excited about that. I'm planning on putting this into as many parents' hands as possible. Because this is such a great tool for these kiddos who are really, non-speaking, but like they have communicative intent, they're pulling somebody's hand, they may point, but like they can't say exactly what they want. And these parents are so frustrated because they, are having tantrums often. And, every behavior has a function, and likely they're trying to communicate something they want or they need, and they can't yet, vocally, or the way that, a neurotypical human is looking to receive. So I love that, this is, such a cool device or a cool app, that can go, like you said, on any smartphone, or iPad, anything. It's just a downloadable app. You download the Kulture City app.
Yep. That's amazing.
Okay.
Is it
so
only...
we actually...
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, we even were taking into account, like, so when we call them houseless folks or homeless folks, that most of them have a smartphone. And there is a lot of neurodivergence in the houseless community. And we're just like, everyone deserves, to have a voice. And it should, to us, we're like, it really, really should be free, which requires a lot of fundraising and behind the scenes work. but we see it as so vital because like also like, I mean, I know people right now can't see me, but I'm pointing like to our voice box, right? So ours works, right? Like ours is works with ease. Is rather what I should say. And so it's kind of not fair if you have to pay a subscription fee for some sort of voice or have to have a certain amount of money or access to, a speech therapist. Because what if you can't even, I don't know, I always think about like, what if you are a mom that has multiple kids working multiple jobs and you can't like make it happen? I just love that Koji is so accessible and equitable. So that means a lot too of you encouraging like people in your office to just say like, hey, like go check out Koji. And yeah, we have no agenda other than genuinely to help people with it. So yeah.
I absolutely like I have a developmental day tomorrow actually, and I cannot wait to tell the girl who works with me that this needs to be added to our resource list for parents. So I'm gonna download it myself tonight probably.
Awesome. I'll
and
probably have to help
play
her.
around. Yeah, so I'm not tech savvy is the problem.
I'll show her how to download it.
No, that's actually encouraging to hear. If you can actually take note of because we've been working with this with some different families.
Okay.
And that is one thing that that's been so encouraging is seeing some people that are like not quote unquote tech savvy and picking up on like Koji and modeling and everything really quickly. And so no pressure.
Okay.
Like no pressure if it is.
So if you're like, okay, well, this was our worst case.
That might be true.
No
It really may. Have you ever seen the movie Zoolander? Where they have the MacBook and they're like the files are in the computer. That's how I feel about computers.
I mean, I'm not that tech savvy either. Like I'm like my role in it was you're a speech language pathologist. What would you love to see in it? Like what do you know of like the research? And so that was me. I wasn't the amazing team or tech team behind the scenes that created this whole thing. So I'm
awesome.
Similar boat.
I'm so excited about it. That's just so encouraging because, like the single mom with multiple kids, that is like a vast majority of my population working 2 jobs to just provide. And,
yes.
And so that is so encouraging to hear that,
yes.
We've been printing off like PEX cards sometimes like for these kids just to give them something,
Absolutely.
But I'm really excited for this. So.
Speaking of all the different demographics and how this kind of reaches that social determinants of health, what is the capability, if it's not now, is that a future goal of Koji to be multilingual? We just had a conversation with a Hispanic advocate and autism mom. So I think that would be really cool if it is available.
It comes in English and Spanish right now. But I think the plan is like adding another 8 languages in Koji 2.0, but we would love to get it in as many languages as possible because again, it's like the stat is like 99 million people globally could benefit from some sort of AAC. And that's globally, so we know there's lots and lots of languages that this needs to happen. But yeah.
That's awesome.
Great question.
Yeah, great work. Because, I mean, just something that has just so desperately needed, obviously. And, like you said, to be so accessible, that's just absolutely amazing. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I think I just need to like kind of shout out a little bit to, again, like Julian and his wife, Michelle Kong. They're both doctors. They have 2 autistic sons. And they just like foster this energy amongst our Kulture City team or family that we like to call ourselves of like dream it. And then we're going to like, let's figure out a way to make it happen. And like the fact that they have like, spearheaded all of this. It's just so refreshing because again, like Kulture City is one of the most authentic, like it's just people centric. It's like everyone belongs. So let's create that world and make sure that everyone knows that. And I think Koji is just a massive way of showing that. So
Yeah.
we're very excited about it. But also, I should also mention on the rest of the app, what's really cool when you open up the Kulture City app, right away you'll see venues in your specific region if you have your location on that have taken our training. And if you select it, so like I know all the Lego storefronts nationwide are one of our big partners. And if you select like the Lego store, it's gonna walk you through a social story on what to expect at the Lego store so that you can show that to again, whoever in your family needs assistance to get ahead of dysregulation, because sensory inclusion is, we call it, it's like our baby. um, it walks you through like what to expect and how to access different sensory tools and accommodations that you might need. And so again, like you can even click on the whole map of the United States and click on a state and it'll pull up all of our different partners and whatnot, which is really encouraging. And we just hope to expand that more and more. So do check the social stories out. And now even when Koji was developed, we developed a way for families and individuals to be able to create their own social stories, to start sharing those even. Like if you have a favorite coffee shop and you think other people in your community need to know about it, like let's create a quick social story so that that family can kind of get ahead of dysregulation and understand like what to expect at that specific coffee shop. So it's it's a completely free app.
That
Everything on it.
is amazing.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking of like
all the possibilities.
Yeah, all the possibilities and how that's going to benefit so many people. I'm curious if someone has a business or knows of a local business that they want
Yes.
to get in partnership with Kulture City to provide some type of social story or training. That's how would they do
Absolutely.
that?
Love that question. So just email us. We will get right back to you immediately. It's support@kulturecity.org. Kulture City is with a K because we're changing the culture, so we are changing the way we spell culture. So again, support@kulturecity.org. Again, we literally will train any venue or entity. Also for parents listening, because I know there's a lot of stress and advocating for your child, and it is a crazy amount of stress, and I think it's not even fair for y'all. But I think that keeping in mind Kulture City works with schools and getting conversations set up between us and like superintendents or us and special education departments or us and even a single teacher within a school. Like we love to partner with schools to get the whole school up and operating as a sensory inclusive school or school district even, and providing the various tools for the students. So please, we love to work with schools.
I have some school districts for you.
Yeah.
Yes. Send them.
Because I get very frustrated sometimes. Like from a mama standpoint, my son is in the Fort Mill preschool district, and we have had an excellent experience.
That's awesome.
That I don't know if that is just the teacher that he has had. I don't really know. But we've just had an excellent experience. But so many of my families don't have that. And like in the surrounding, whether it be the Rock Hill district or, the York or the Lancaster or Chester, there's just so many districts that are struggling and are under-resourced. I mean, it's not, a lack of wanting to be knowledgeable, I think, a lot of times for the schools. I think it is truly a lack of ability to be resourced in some ways.
Right.
But it's not a lack of ability if you guys can partner with them.
Yeah. And I will tell you right away, because I know schools immediately go to price. We are so cheap.
Okay.
We are so cheap because we want to be everywhere. So
Yeah.
I think I'll just tell you it's $500 a year. And that's it for the it doesn't matter the size of your school.
Okay.
So even sometimes we can find like one family to fund that whole thing, or you can see like people will do a fundraiser. We even recently in Kentucky, there was a 4th grader who heard about Kulture City. He was sitting in the office when I was speaking with this gal from there, and he was like, I'm going to raise the money. And he raised the money in 2 weeks. It was,
That's awesome.
yeah.
That's
So
amazing.
it's really, yeah.
Okay, so what do I do when I have all these school districts who have agreed? I just call you?
Send them to me. Yep,
Email,
no, send them
email
via
to
email,
Emails
and
of support.
it's a very, very smooth process. Like yeah, please send them to us. We require the training. It's a once a year training to happen. Again, once a year. It's about 45 minutes in duration, and we update it yearly on best practices, and we require that 50% of staff take it. And it's great because you have access to that training the whole year round. So like if people go on paternity or maternity leaves and you get substitute teachers and stuff, they can easily be onboarded and take the training too. And you guys can access it over and over and over again. You could even share it with your students so they can understand maybe themselves and their peers better. We would love to research sometime like the reduction, if like we would hope a reduction in like bullying even could happen with that whole like being curious, that disposition of taking a stance on wondering more of what's going on inside one another, and that empathy that can come with that too. So yes, please reach out to us again. $500 a year, massive impact. It's a great way for Kulture City to help partner, especially with like parents and advocacy. We
Okay.
love that stuff. So yes.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
It's amazing. Well, I'm sure there's a lot more that we could talk through. But just to kind of round out our
Do another one.
conversation, we have at the end of our episodes, we just ask the person that we're interviewing to let us know something that they think the world ought to know about autism. So if you could kind of give us your insight into what that is, we'd love to hear that.
Yeah. The one I will focus on for sure, because I think this one is actually incredibly important, is when things maybe look overwhelming because we still are in process of the world understanding, again, neurodivergence and providing accommodations and even understanding like how the brain is working within autism. Remember to look at your child or again, your partner, your friend, an adult, grandparent that's autistic, and remember like to see not only their humanity, but like how oftentimes they are very happy. And I think sometimes we'll think like, oh, but if they don't hit this mark, or oh, if they don't verbally speak, or oh, if they don't have 5 friends, or we tend to think and project kind of what we maybe want on to those that we love without realizing like, oh my gosh, Johnny and Susie are actually so happy and full of so much joy, and like to kind of rest also in that so that you don't feel this constant need of like, I have to do more, I have to do more, I have to do more, and just kind of enjoy the present and enjoy the moment, because I think more than anything, like I'm a parent too, but like you want your kids to be happy. And I think that exists oftentimes in the majority of autistic children and adults. So that would be my thing you ought to know.
Did you just jump inside my brain?
I know, right?
To make sure that I like remember that, because that's like always my thing is like I want him to be happy. Like I don't want him to be frustrated because he can't tell me something, like but that's oftentimes me projecting something, and like I'm aware of that, but I don't live in that every single moment. There's times and days where I do dive into that, like, oh, but come on, buddy, like, this can't be nice and easy for you. But like we say it all the time, our kids are so happy. Like he wakes up happy and smiling. He goes to bed with a smile. Like I swear, like he sleeps with a smile on his face. And so that is just so like nice to hear.
Yes.
That's what we need to rest in. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad that resonated.
Yeah.
I think that's an easy thing to forget, and you shouldn't feel shame about it. I think, yeah, we receive lots of messages throughout the day for all of us that like life should look a certain way or be a certain way. And I'm sure you've heard of the term like autistic joy, but so with my feelings myself too, I always feel like when I get happy and joyful, mine's even more amplified. Probably, I'm not neurotypical, but I can only imagine that mine, from what I've now seen as I'm aging, like I can only see mine kind of is maybe elevated even. And so I find myself being kind of grateful for those moments because I think that is nice to be able to experience a joy of that intensity. Um, yeah.
It's awesome.
That was a great nugget.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that with us. We'd love to kind of let our listeners know how they can follow you and your journey. And then also if you can kind of plug Kulture City's information and how to find that again. And then
Definitely.
your book, we'd love to let us know where we can find the book too.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, let's start with Kulture City. So Kulture City, if you, I would say our biggest social media presence is Instagram. So it's just one word, Kulture City with a K. And then our website is www.kulturecity.org. You'll be able to contact us there again if you have any desire for like schools or whatever, even places of worship, restaurants, all the above. Please connect to us. And then for me, my social media, I would say I also am mostly on Instagram. I'm also on Facebook, but I do not tend to utilize that one as much. But mine is author Meg Raby. And then to access the My Brother Otto books, you can either go to gibbssmithpublishing.com and order them there, or Amazon, Target, Barnes and Noble, and then a bunch of different independent bookshops like across the US is where you can access those. And there's two of them. There's My Brother Otto and My Brother Otto in the Birthday Party.
I know where I'm going to go buy the second one now. Thank you.
Oh, I love the second one.
Well, Meg, it was a pleasure to connect with you today, kind of hear your story, also sharing Kulture City's passion and their goal. And Koji, we're so excited to kind of be an advocate of that too for this community. Sorry.
Ah, yes. Support.
Heard.
He's like, we're talking about voices.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we will, I'm sure, like, as Koji grows, as Kulture City grows,
I see you.
We would love to have you back on and be able to talk about new things that they have coming up, so we can broadcast that to our listeners as well.
I love it. Absolutely. Thank you so much for reaching out and for making this happen. It's been so warm and excellent.
Right. Well, we will go ahead and let you go. And we will, I'm sure, could be connecting soon. So we will talk again later. Bye.